Welcome to Suddenly Different, where we explore stories and strategies for life when it doesn't go to plan. I'm Leigh-Anne Charland, inviting you to join me on this journey. Today's guest is a woman whose life has been shaped by music, meaning, and quiet strength in the face of loss. Roslyn English OAM has dedicated decades to enriching the Central Coast through arts and service. She's not only a musical director and leader within the Gosford Musical Society, she's a long-standing contributor to community wellbeing through her work with cancer support, advocacy and connection. In this episode of Suddenly Different, we explore the unexpected turns life takes, how loss can reshape us, and how creativity and community help us keep going. Roslyn shares her story with warmth, humility, and the kind of wisdom that only comes from lived experience. I'm honoured to share this conversation with her. Welcome, 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 Roslyn. It is so wonderful for you to be here today. And I know that we're going to have a lot of fun and touch some not so fun subjects.
Thank you and good morning.
Tell me, good morning. Was there a moment in your life that felt like a before and after, that life was suddenly different and you knew in your being that it would never be the same again?
8th of January 1989. That was the date on which I came home from Sydney, and late in the night, or around midnight, 12:30, I found my husband who'd been killed as a result of an electrical accident. It took some time for all of it to hit me, of course, but at that point, life was never going to ever be the same for me again.
My goodness. So were you the person who discovered him?
Yes, my sister was with me,
Yes.
which was very fortuitous.
Yes,
It wasn't a pleasant sight. He'd been dead at that time for 7 or 8 hours, and yes, it just wasn't a pretty sight. I was very obviously distraught, distressed, and all of the feelings, but I was just a bit maniacal, actually. I laid on top of him to try and warm him up. He was, when they say deathly cold, that was what he was, and I don't think I'll ever forget the feeling of that deathly cold.
Right. With the emergency services arriving, were they of great support to you in helping you adjust to that moment and getting you back home to a safe place?
Look, honestly, I could not say how wonderful they were. They were just amazing, and I've discovered afterwards that the young police constable that was there, that this was his first death while on the force. The poor fellow, he was amazing. SES was there, ambulance, the police all arrived. This is at 1 o'clock or 1:30 in the morning, and the poor neighbours next door didn't know what was happening, of course. So, but that poor young policeman I was sitting on the veranda of the house where this happened, and he said to me, "Look, I'm sorry I have to tell you, but your husband is no longer alive." And I don't know what, now I can honestly say I can't imagine how hard that was for him. I know they have training and that sort of thing, but the first time, he was so lovely, and the ambulance men were unbelievable, because I was, like I said, I was maniacal, and I wanted to go in the ambulance with my husband's body, and I'm just saying, I can't leave Kevin, and I really want him. I wanted to go with him. Of course, which was out of the question. They had to take him to the mortuary. Yeah, they were good. And eventually my sister went and spoke to the neighbours to tell them what was going on. And the neighbours were wonderful. And they said, "Look, come in and sit here," and made us a cup of tea. And while the police took statements and that sort of stuff. So, yes, it was pretty hair-raising experience, I have to say. Not something you would wish on anyone else.
No, absolutely. And going forward from that, I know that from our discussion prior to now, that you had some further life events that seemed to cascade on you. with your grief?
Yes, well, I had my mum and dad were elderly at that time, of course, and I ended up looking after them here in this house here with me. And their health deteriorated, and they both passed away 14 months after Kevin, but they died 5 weeks apart as well, just from different things and from circumstances. And then on top of that, later on, I had a couple of bouts of breast cancer and I've had a melanoma removed. So grief is not an easy process.
No, and it's something that you've experienced more than your share.
Yes, I think it was all so much of it happened within a reasonable. I had 5 deaths actually within 18 months. I had a girlfriend who committed suicide, and my brother-in-law passed away. That I have to say that the funeral home and I were on first name terms. They
Yes.
honestly, what an amazing organisation they were as well. But and you know what, Leigh-Anne, I'm lucky that I've had all this experience. I was also fortunate. I worked in the local health service for 36 years. I ended up as a business manager in there, and for somebody who doesn't know the system, it would be very hard to navigate your way through all of this. And of course, because Kevin's death was an accident, we had to have an autopsy, which I found incredibly confronting to think that what they had to do to my husband's body, and then we had to have an inquest, of course, and the first inquest fell over because of a technicality with somebody's legal representation. And so that didn't happen until about 4 months later. So in the meantime, funds are frozen and all that sort of hard stuff. You've got to sort of live on thin air. And I had 3 daughters who were aged 10, 12 and 13 at the time, and the second one was just starting high school, which was horrendous for her. It's just such a difficult time for them, and they've grown into the most magnificent women.
Absolutely. It is. It sounds like through the different processes that happen, because to the people not experience it, it's their job or their business, isn't it? Whereas for the person, for the wife, access to money, it all gets frozen, right?
Mm.
And so you don't know that. I'm sure that there are, millions of women out there or partners who've experienced that, that there's not a fair, helpful process for the person left behind.
Mm. No, the processes are there, but they're difficult to navigate through. That's the hard part. I mean, buying a coffin for my husband, it's one of the hardest things I've ever done. Just
Yes.
how do you even think about that? But you kind of go through the motions, and just it's one step after the next. And because his death was an accident, insurance doesn't pay anything until you get a formal death certificate with a cause of death on it. And that, of course, I didn't get that for months and months. And in fact, I didn't get any payout until August, which was January he passed away, excuse me, and August I got some payout from his employer. The other issue with apart from all the legal issues and things, here's a good one as far as processes is concerned. The next day after the next morning after I got home, which was something like 5 o'clock or something in the morning, the detectives arrived, and we went through the motion. I gave another statement of everything that happened. And as he was leaving, he said to me, "Oh, don't leave town because you were the last person to see your husband alive." And I thought, you hear that and see that on television and stuff, and you never think that you will hear that actually said to you. I felt like slapping him, actually. No, he's just he had to say that. He was doing his job. He had to say that. But and the reaction to that stayed with me for days, I have to say. I thought, they really, do they suspect me? Do they think I've done something with this, with my husband? It was hideous.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness gracious. And I remember that you told me that when you were driving home to see your husband, something happened to your car. So,
Yes.
there was something that prolonged.
Yes. Yes, well, that's why I was so late in the middle of the night. What had happened, the girls and I had been away on a holiday. It was, as I say, January school holidays, and Kevin had stayed home to finish some odd jobs on this house that we'd been building. It was a house we built to leapfrog onto building our forever house. It was a project house. Cut a long story short, his sister lived in Sydney, and she said, "I'll bring the girls down. The girls will have a holiday." She was a lovely auntie, and the girls always loved going down there and having a good time with her, being spoilt, of course. And that's an auntie's job, isn't it, to spoil their their nieces. And I left Sydney at about 9:30. I'd tried to ring several times and tried to ring Kevin several times, and I couldn't get through to him. And remember, this is before mobile phones. No mobile phones to ring. So I'm ringing our landline, and I rang the people across the road and then the friends up the road. No one had seen him, and I thought, he's probably gone to sleep somewhere. So I left Sydney at about 9:30, and just before I was getting onto the freeway, the brakes on the car started doing some strange stuff. And because it was so late at night, I was frightened to stop on the freeway. So I just drove home in second gear and it took forever. So
my goodness.
So I limped into the driveway here at home, and thank goodness there was a bump, like a dip in and getting onto the to stop me. Yeah. But when I got home, there was no sign of him. He wasn't here. And I realised afterwards that nothing had changed in the house since I'd left it. And I thought that was really strange. And my sister was up visiting from the country, visiting mum and dad, and I rang and said, "Look, I'm sorry to worry you, but I can't drive the car. Can you come pick me up? I need to go down to the house and see if Kevin's down there." And, of course, that's where he was. So, yes, it was just driving home in second gear was an interesting experience as well too.
Well, that's right. I mean, yeah, you're so fortunate that you're okay with the girls.
Mm.
So
I had to go back and get them the next day.
right. So that's right. They'd stayed. So thank goodness they weren't with you.
No, it would have been hideous. It was terrible. Yeah, it would have been awful.
Yeah, dear.
And I guess the good thing is that I took the girls down to see him. He was at the house before I took the girls to Sydney. So I took them down there to say goodbye to him and see you next few days. So they actually saw him. But there's all the what ifs. Like if I had turned around or if I had looked in the rear vision mirror, I would have seen him fall off the ladder, and if only, and all that stuff goes on. It's just so hard. All the bargaining, that goes on with it. Mm.
Yes. That's right. And we do play, I know with my condition, like, I'm grieving the life I used to have. And so many times it's like, well, what if I hadn't have done that? Would I have avoided having a mini stroke? What could I have done to keep the life I had?
Yes.
And I understand
it's a grief fear. Grief is not only about death, it's about loss. And grief is, for me, I've sort of done a lot of research and that sort of thing into this, and somebody, I can't remember who or where, described grief as just love with nowhere to go. And it's feelings about what you had with nowhere to go. And that's for me is an excellent definition.
Yeah, it does, because it is. It's sort of, it is like there's a blockage there. You
Yes.
don't know where to point it. And so sometimes you feel a bit angry or frustrated or, all the different emotions that come up with grief.
Yes, well, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross defined all the 5 stages of grief, didn't she? And the first one is, of course, the gut-wrenching sadness that you have, and there's anger and bargaining and denial and depression and those things. So, but I've done a lot of research, as I said, and grief is now sort of documented as types of grief as well, in addition to the Kubler-Ross definition. The types of grief, like anticipatory grief or community grief and unexpected or complicated grief and sudden traumatic grief and things. And it's interesting. I was speaking to a woman the other day at a Women of the World thinking, and she said to me, "What do you talk about?" And I said, "Oh, lots of things, but mainly grief." And she said, "Yeah," she said, "That's great. We don't talk about it." And I said, "No, we don't. people don't, and especially men. And it's such a shame because people need to talk about it.
Well, that's why it's such a surprise for us all, isn't it? If we don't talk about it, we don't have any relationship with it beforehand, then it's hard to recognise and go through it.
Well, and the sad thing is there's no tick box, there's no checklist about it. Grief is very personal and everyone deals with it differently. Everyone has different needs about getting through their grief, and it just is. It just is.
Yeah, that's one of my favourite quotes is, "It just is." There is no polarity to it. It is unavoidable. Now, going through, that first year and then on from there, is that when you started your community work, or were you already doing your community work before that time?
No, I didn't. No, I hadn't started it then. There's quite a funny story actually about, amongst all this doom and gloom, but there's a funny story about how I got started with the Musical Society. My husband's name was Kevin, and there's a gentleman up here called Kevin Booth who rang my home. And again, it's before mobile phones, so everything had to go through the home phone. And he's asked my Kevin to ring him back. And Kevin Booth here is on the Central Coast, the late Kevin Booth, a wonderful, wonderful man. And he owns the biggest car dealership on the coast. And I said to my Kevin, I'm not going to ring you back. I don't want to buy a car. I'm not going to, no, don't want to buy a car. Anyway, that happened twice. And the third time that the Kevin Booth rang, my Kevin said, "You're being very rude. You need to ring this man back." So I rang him. Honestly, he was the loveliest gentleman, and the definition of a gentleman is what he was. And he said, "Oh, Ros, we need a musical director. We're opening Half a Sixpence, the musical, at Gosford Musical Society in about 5 weeks. Would you do the job?" And I had no idea of the actual role of a musical director. Anyway, and I said, "Oh, yes, okay, all right, I'll give it a shot if you've got nobody else." And so that's how I started, and that was sort of just the year before, right in the year before. No, it wasn't, a couple of years before, actually, before Kevin passed away. And I've been there ever since until 2022. I resigned as president, and but I still volunteer in there, and I sing in the choir and that stuff, so I'm still involved with them. But that started my career in community work. I started with the Cancer Council, my community work with the Cancer Council in 2015 when I retired. I actually just took on another job. I left one paying job and took on several others where you don't get paid. But it's wonderful, and I just love what I do with the Cancer Council. It's just amazing.
Fabulous. Well, you would have the hugest heart. I can feel that anyway. You have such empathy for people to know how to support them, and you've got so much lived experience, and it sounds like you've researched things so that you're really able to be just an amazing support and leader because people need leadership.
Yeah,
when they're unwell.
Well, we need leadership all the time, actually, as we all know. But yes, it's about, I didn't realise, but I'm always been a leader, and it's funny how things dawn on you late in life. But yeah, I don't know, I've always been. And somebody said to me the other day, "Why is it hard for you to ask for help?" Because I've just learnt now how to ask for help. And I said, I've always been the person who fixes everything. People always ask me and I just fix it. And so I've always been the leader, and now I'm learning new things. Doing my very first podcast. I'll be 80 this year, and I'm just doing my first podcast.
Fantastic. I'm so honoured.
I guess I'm just, that's the way I am. I think in the Gallup strengths, empathy is my number one strength. So yeah, that's kind of if the shoe fits.
I understand that. Yes, mine is connectedness.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Yeah, so I know
you're in the right spot, aren't you?
Like. Yes. It's one thing that I do because I'm home so much alone. I do miss meeting diversity of people and having, sharing their stories. So that's one of the reasons why I've started the podcast, is there are lots of people like me who are lonely, and there's lots of stories that show how amazing people have overcome challenges they never thought they'd have.
But it's about resilience, isn't it? And if you think of it, I always think of a piece of elastic. And elastic is described as being resilient. But if you have a piece of elastic and wait around, nothing, it doesn't do anything. What you need is the courage to be able to make things happen. And if you have the courage to move the elastic, that's when you get the resilience and the resistance. And that's what makes you be able to move forward in your thing. I always talk about having a bucket of courage, and I dip into this bucket of courage time and time again, and I'm just dipping into it again, actually. And today, I could have thought, oh, no, I can't do that, blah, blah, blah. I'm a bit out of my comfort zone, but I'm loving it. Thank you so much for asking.
Yes. Well, and I mean, the wisdom, you said before that you're almost 80, and there's a lifetime of wisdom that you've already shared with your children, that you've shared with your community. Is there something coming up soon that you're going to be sharing your wisdom with the broader community?
You could be
Could there
talking
be a
about
book coming?
You could be talking about my book called The Widow's Courage, and it's how to navigate through grief and loss to survivorship. It talks about my life story, but it also talks about using your courage to get through things and to make sure that when I had both my bouts of breast cancer, I had to have chemo and radiation. And I ended up the first time finishing off an MBA while I was having the chemo. So, that's what I mean about it. And even just the courage to undertake the MBA, at any time in life, but at that time as well. And then again, I had to use my courage to remarry. I had hooked up with an old friend, and there's a funny story about us getting married as well. And we'd been married for 28 wonderful years. He's a lovely, lovely man. I'm so lucky. I'm lucky to have two people to love me. Some people don't have anybody in this world. And I've had two lovely husbands, and I still have one. So that's pretty fortunate in person, I think.
I think that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So you're showing so many like steps forward, right? It's like, have courage, believe in yourself, try something new, open your heart again. Contribute. Don't be a taker, be a giver, lead, all of these things that I'm hearing in our conversation. And the number of lives that you will have touched is extraordinary.
I hope to touch a lot more with my book. But it's interesting.
Yes.
Being involved in a community theatre group is a wonderful, wonderful experience as well, as long as people leave their egos at the door, which probably mostly they don't. But it's just a wonderful place. It's like a whole community. And I'm actually doing a presentation at the end of the week, and I'm calling it Let's Put On a Show, and just talk about how to put on a production. And it's a really interesting process, how it all comes together. But what it does for the community is just amazing. It's incredible. It gives young people who are a little bit outside the norm, people who don't feel that they belong, it gives them a place to belong. I could tell you a million stories about the wonderful things that have happened to people in there, but just from my personal connections with people. But everyone has a job. There's a role for people, and if that job doesn't get done, then the production's at risk. And, we have a team of people. You have the people who look after the business side, you have the people who look after the creative side. And I've been lucky as a musical director. I've done about 15 shows as a musical director, and working with the children as well. The kids are wonderful. They're just like sponges. We did Seussical the musical, and, the Dr. Seuss series, and just, gosh, it's one of the best things we've ever done, actually. It's so cool. It's really good. The kids are wonderful, and they have such a good peer community within the musicals, within the group, within the community theatre group that the group I'm talking about have. They're almost self-disciplined because, and they're sponges. They soak up what goes on, at the adult level, and they just, it's amazing. It's amazing. It's an amazing organisation. And the same thing. I mean, I get the same sort of, well, different, but a same level of satisfaction from the Cancer Council. We because I'm an advocate there. An advocate goes out into the community and we talk to them. I have a liaison with my local MP and I talk to him about policy changes, things to change and improve cancer care and improve support and all of those sorts of things. And, 600,000 children wear a hat to school now every day because of people like us advocates, they're out there making noises and getting things improved. In 2018, we advocates across New South Wales acquired $100 million for palliative care. I know, it's just amazing. That was to employ 10 doctors and 129 nurses to be trained as palliative care specialist professionals, and that was such a rewarding campaign. It was really good. So, and those, just the luckiest person in the world to be able to do all this. It's wonderful.
I can honestly feel like I've got a feeling in my chest from, as you described, both of those different communities that you are a part of and your leadership role and bravery, like being comfortable speaking to politicians and cutting through the noise and being willing to stand up and fight. There's so many different causes that need advocates to be able to make sure that their problem is addressed. And it takes someone not necessarily knowing all the answers when they start, but having a go.
Being courageous. Yeah, being courageous.
Yes, yeah.
When Kevin died, I operated on a 1 hour at a time basis. If I can get through the next hour, I'll survive. If I can get through the next hour, I'll survive. And I did that until I, actually obviously survived. But it's just, and again, I come back to just being courageous. I had no idea about talking to my politician. I'm lucky that he's a wonderful support of the Cancer Council, and he sadly lost his wife in a cancer battle as well. So he's very across all the things and the impact that cancer has on people. It's not only on the cancer patient, but the family and the families and the helplessness that the families feel and all that sort of thing.
I can understand. My father had brain cancer, and I know that it was only a year. We had a year with him after the diagnosis, but there was a lot of support there, and I think that and there would have been even more support if we'd have looked for it, but we didn't know. And I think that's where the awareness of what the Cancer Council does is so important, and because people don't know that there is more support out there.
Yes, there's. I actually did an Australia's Biggest Morning Tea presentation for the Prostate Cancer Foundation. I'm sitting there talking to a bunch of blokes with prostate cancer. It was an interesting experience. The convener wanted me to tell them what the Cancer Council does. And it was very rewarding to be able to have them understand that there's so much support. Cancer Council runs a 13 11 20 helpline. It's a free service, 13 11 20, and that's manned by professional peoples who will help you, and they'll direct any help to the most appropriate area. They helped me amazingly at a time when I really, really needed it. They were wonderful. Pointed me in the right direction for help. Yeah, so it's just, and again, I'm a lucky person because I was able to access that service. People don't know, as you say, what's available out there. But it is, the impact of cancer is amazing. It's just, it impacts the family, your children, and the impact on your children. How do you talk to children about having cancer? I was lucky. My first cancer was 28 years ago. So I'm actually one of the really good statistics, the 92% of breast cancer patients who survived more than 5 years. But there wasn't all the support and stuff then. People like me have been advocating and getting more things done. I mean, as a group of advocates, we got the chemotherapy co-payment abolished, that was really wonderful. My chemo cost me lots and lots of money because I had to make a co-payment with the for the chemo. So yeah, but
Right. Wow. Yeah. And the Cancer Council, there, it's so many ailments, different ailments fall under that. So there is that power in it being the umbrella, because it isn't the umbrella one of its logos, the
that's
Cancer
in the sun,
Council.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
sunscreen thing. Yeah, that's right. Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
But there are just so many different. I know people. I've had a melanoma myself, and um, only found it by accident. It was in the middle of my back,
No,
and I was very fortunate to get it before it became nasty. And so now I'm careful.
good, very
Yes.
good.
Now, if somebody was listening to us now and thinking about and experiencing a suddenly different moment, had a close family friend, person, loved one who was ill and they were trying to support them, or they had problems of their own, what would you say to them was some resources that they could connect to?
I think I would say, what do you need? Because people ring and say, oh, just tell me whatever you want and I'll come and help you. But you need to, if it's possible, be present. And if it's not possible, just ask, what do you need?
What do you need?
Yes.
And listen, I suppose.
Oh, yes. Yeah, yeah. And if it's something that you can't help them with, certainly find the person who can. That's, goes without saying, really. But I mean,
Yeah,
I think,
yeah.
there were times when people just turned up on my doorstep with a casserole. And that's a lovely thing to do without even being asked, and just pop this in your freezer, Ros, and then it's gone. With 3 children and things you've got to do everything. You're 24/7 parent and the only one, and any single parents out there will relate to what I'm talking about. You've got to work. I ended up going to work I worked as a permanent, permanent part-time person at the local health service for a long time. And I had to go back to work just to get food on the table between the time. And as it turned out, we had just bought into a partnership. My husband had been working with a mate of his as in a chartered accountancy. And we just bought into the partnership. And the arrangement was that on the 5th of February, of 1989, they had all had an appointment. The 3 partners had an appointment to go and sort out key man insurance, it was called in those days, I think. Sadly, Evan died 3 weeks too early, and we didn't have access to that insurance. There was all the money issues, and apart from the fact that anything I had with any accounts or insurance, anything was frozen, so I had to have go back to my job very early, and I don't think I was all that productive, but nevertheless, I had to put food on the table. So there you go.
Yeah, well, I mean, we forget about these things. We forget about that the practicality of life still needs to go on,
Yeah,
and there can be hurdles.
you've got to clean the house. You've got to do the washing and ironing and do the shopping and get the car serviced and pay the mortgage and all of those things, and still find time to love your children. And that's got to come first for me. That's got to come first before anything. Can't tell you the number of times I've been washing the kitchen floor at 1 o'clock in the morning.
It's gracious. It's the resilience, that grabbing hold of the elastic and using the tension to keep going. Keep going. You are an absolute star and inspiration, and I can fully understand why you received your Order of Australia medal, and congratulations on receiving that. I think that people underestimate how much our community needs people like you to keep it going. Community doesn't just happen. It is bought into if you want to be part of community.
If you don't have a community, you have nothing really. It gives people I'm talking here about Gosford Musical Society. We run a shed. It used to be called a men's shed back in the old days, and now it's just the shed, because there are women that come. We have people with disabilities that we encourage, and they come and do tasks. It's a wonderful outlet for them. We have men who are grieving. We have men who are just tradespeople and want to continue to do something after they retire. They build all the sets, they build props. We have women who do all the catering. We have people who are sewists, wonderful seamstresses who make costumes. And we have a social enterprise called GMS Costumes. And I volunteer in the shop. I love it. And they hire out costumes and they hire out whole shows and that sort of stuff. It's just such I can't imagine what the community would be like without that sort of thing. I mean, there's lots of men's sheds around now, and they're often attached to religious groups and churches and things, but just it's such a place where like-minded people can come together and share time and interests and aims together. It's amazing, really. I just love it. I agree with you. People don't understand the value of it.
Yes, because we spend so much time working and getting by, but when there's time, when we've got time on our hands, we don't know what to do. So that advice in itself is to find somewhere in the community that you can be a part of, because it'll be a win-win.
But there's musicians. We have real orchestras, and musicians. And one of the things I was musical director for Oliver. We were doing Oliver. This is back in Food, Glorious Food. And
yes.
we had. I at one stage was teaching the piano, and I used to teach at the grammar school and at the conservatorium here, and I had my own studios here. You can see all the music stuff in the background. And we had, because I was a teacher at the con, we had a partnership. The Musical Society and the Conservatorium had a partnership, and we offered the young students the opportunity to play in an orchestra and to be assessed as a certificate of performance. Those sorts of things are just invaluable. It's really, and a lot of those children. It's funny, I went down to see MJ the musical the other night and ran into one of these very people that I was just talking about, and she said to me, "Oh, God, I miss it. I miss you." And she said, "Gee, it was the cornerstone." She said, "Well, my whole musical," and she was so excited. It was lovely. But just such a reward. How rewarding is that? Just wonderful.
That's the circle.
Yes.
It's like it's creating the space, giving the wisdom and advice, nurturing the souls, and then they can do it because that's the way they've learnt it, right?
She said,
the benefit.
Ros, by the time I got to play in the professional area, I learned everything, and they all thought I was really clever because I knew it.
That is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Well, I know that we could talk on for ages, and I know. So when is your book coming out?
It's in editing at the moment.
To the...
It's in editing at the moment, so I'm hoping by about August, hopefully. I'll certainly let you know, Leigh-Anne.
Oh, yes. Well, I can't wait. And I think we'll reconnect when that comes out, and we'll have a follow-up session and talk about even greater contribution to the community.
Thank you.
Thank you so, so much. And I'm really grateful for you to be my second podcast guest and for joining me on this journey. And my dog is just saying thank you as well.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you. I'm delighted to have done my first podcast. Thank you, Leigh-Anne.
You're
it's
a
lovely
pro.
to be your guest.
Thank you.
This has been Suddenly Different. I'm Leigh-Anne Charland, and I'm so grateful you shared your time with me. If you felt a spark, a tear, or a moment of recognition, I hope you'll pass that gift along by sharing this show. Take a deep breath, trust your path, and I'll meet you back here soon.